Very warm welcome to all of you to join us on this exciting discussion on a critical subject and topic, which is we all are learning into, right? I mean, none of us can say that we are an expert on this. So we all are learning, and today also will be a mutual learning. We'll learn from each other in terms of how do we, and the topic is how do we kickstart LGBTQ plus inclusion at the workplace. And the reason we chose this topic is uh, because a lot of us have intent they really want to do, but many of us struggle in terms of where do we begin with, right? And we thought let's keep this session very sharp focused on how do we begin, especially for the organizations who have intention to in their DI journey to mature into LGBTQ plus inclusion at the workplace. And it's not easy, let me tell you. And we have three very great experts who have personal experiences and rich wisdom that will share with us, and guide us how to start with that. So let me first welcome our all the audience. First of all, thanks for sparing time, and also our esteemed guests. So let me start from Beena. And we'll go to the induction. Beena, thanks for joining in. Beena is head of HR for Fashion and Lifestyle Geo. And Vijaya, if you can move to the next slide so that we can see their intro. It's a long intro. So she has more than 2 decades of HR experience and in HR strategy, change management. And she's particularly very passionate about DEI and on LGBT inclusion. So we love to hear your views, how you're doing that in your organization, in your past experiences as you're seeing. Thanks for joining in, Beena.
Thank you.
All right, and then my friend Param. Param is joining us from Gurgaon today, and she is managing the talent management services for Publicis Sapient globally. And I had the fortune of working with her at one point of time, long back in HCL. We were working together in the same department, and she's very enthusiastic about a DEI. And I think of late, I've heard she has done some amazing work into this space and as a practitioner. And so we'd love to hear from you, Param. Thank you for joining in.
Happy to be here.
And then one of the greatest champion is Anupma. I'm very impressed, Anupma, with what you do on a DI space, and especially for the amazing work that you're doing. And your introduction is long, we have kept here again more than 2 decades of experience. And she's also founder of In Harmony. Is that correct, Anupma? In Harmony.
Yes.
And she's absolutely doing amazing work on that. And also she's on the board of Tweet, an NGO that's working on education, employment, and empowerment of transgender. So she's really committed to the cause and has huge personal experience, first-hand experience of fostering this inclusion of LGBTQ talent into the workplace, especially. So I know 1 hour will be limited, but we'll get going and get your views and your perspective and guidance to all of us. Anupma, thanks for joining in.
Thank you, Sanjeev. Thank you for having me here.
And then I have my team, Kalyan, Vijaya, and Sushil, who's my partner in Enabling World. And he's also joining us from Bangalore. Thanks, Sushil, for joining in. All right. So before we get into the session, just a couple of minutes of introduction about Enabling World. Let me do that. That's my responsibility. So this session today is brought to you from Enabling World, which is a boutique, very small and boutique niche HR consulting firm, which is run by Sushil and myself with a small team. And we have interests in HR consulting, leadership and talent development. DI is in the center of it. And we, of late, I would say in last 3-4 years, suddenly have grown in terms of our interest and the work we are doing into DI space. And we have done such sessions, Beena, Anupma, and Param, on various aspects of DI. We have done on microaggression at workplace. We have done on PWD inclusion, right? We have done on neurodiversity. So we are very keen and passionate about just not gender inclusion, which is standard, which is very common, but beyond that, right? And generating some discussion and knowledge around this. And we also do some bit of outsourcing services, and employee well-being, again, has become a significant pillar for us, where we do a lot of sensitization programs, workshops, and work for various corporates on employee well-being, right? So that's what a lot for us, a boutique organization, but we are now running it for 12 years. And thanks to all of you for your good wishes and our clients and partners to help us succeed. So with that very brief introduction, so let's just dive into the session straight away, right? So we are all ready. So do we have your permission, all the panelists? Can
Yes,
we?
please. Yeah.
All right. All right. So audience, please feel free. This is a very interactive session. There's no format. It'll be conversation, right? That's what it is all about. And please feel free to, put your comments on in the chat. We'll try to make sure that we pick up those. And my team is there. Sushil is there. We'll pick up those. And suggestion to the experts here would be, if you see when you're not speaking, if you see a chat, feel free to comment on that because we may not be able to include all of them into the live session. So please feel free to comment on that. And in my experience, it becomes a parallel session while the talk is going on. There's a parallel session going on. So let's make best use of the time that we have, and welcome all the audience which are there on LinkedIn Live. Thanks for joining in. I know you may not be able to unmute and talk, but you can put your comments and questions on the LinkedIn live event, and I'm sure someone from my team will bring it up here so that you're not excluded. So if you're talking about inclusion, we must include them as well actively into the discussion that we're doing, right? All right, so with that, let's get going. Vijay, you can stop sharing now. Thanks. And this session is being recorded. This is, information that all of you would have got. So anyone who has an objection can log off. That's just a announcement we want to make. All right, so Beena, let me begin with you alphabetically, if I'm saying, I'm just joking. First of all, just a context, why LGBTQ inclusion at the workplace? First of all, we understand it's a very small, tiny percentage. Does it really make, and people are struggling, does it really make a business sense besides doing good? Because this is a good thing to do, right? Because we as an organization, as a value system, must be inclusive to everyone in the organization. If they bring a talent, they must be there.
Yeah.
But what's the business case in crisp manner? Let's begin with that.
Great. So first, we don't know if it is a very small percentage because no one's insisting on a declaration, and there is no need to per se. So we don't know what the percentage is. We don't have the stats unless we collect it for every organization or for an industry or whatever, right? Let's get to the core. I mean, taking a step back, what is this really about? I think a fundamental thought here would be that more than understanding inclusion and everything first, all of us should take out a minute or two and watch the most famous meme on this topic, which talks about equality and equity, right? So at the core, the heart of the matter is that everybody wants to feel needed and everybody wants to feel respected. And when we're talking about a cohort of the society, which is LGBTQI, it is more, centered around biology and sexual preferences. So, why should there be a discrimination on how somebody wants to lead their life or how they are naturally made, right? So people were born with a certain preference, people are born with a certain biology, and regardless of that, they, like every other segment in society, they still want to feel respected, included, and wanted. They want to feel like they're contributing to the maybe a corporate agenda, right? So the business case is, providing that equity, providing a platform which can have equity because a certain section of the society may be feeling sort of disregarded or not included in the general, walks of life sometimes. So, for example, if you see so many trans people struggling to even get a proper, decent education or a job, right? So, why should they be brought to the forefront? Why should they not get an equal opportunity to study, learn, get a skill, get a job, get paid for it just because they're born in a different way, along with all the other segments, right? So the business case is really addressing a need where certain segments from the society want to feel included, and we are offering that platform and saying that, hey, come, skill and get a job. And that is what we are doing. So we are looking for talent. It doesn't matter how you were born. It doesn't matter what you prefer. If you have the skill and ability, please come and join us. And then hence have a direct business impact, of course. So from a societal point of view, yeah, that is the business case that we're looking at.
I also, thanks for that, Beena. I also heard and read that, in case you are inclusive as an organization, especially the current generation,
Yeah.
Gen Z and millennials, right?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, if they know this organization stand for this cause, I
Yeah.
think you are more likely to get talent, any talent, right, for that
Right.
matter, in case
Right.
you branded your organization like that, right? So
Correct.
that way also, I mean, it's not only accessing the LGBTQ talent, but also
Yeah.
other talent who are more
Absolutely.
likely to join you
Yeah.
willingly in case you stand for that cause, because that's very important for the current generation, fortunately, compared
Absolutely.
to Gen X, I mean, the earlier generation,
Yeah.
the current generation is much more sensitive and they care
Correct.
much more about it than what possibly we would have done at least I would have done at my stage, right? So thanks
Yeah.
for
Also, just to clarify, it's not really a reservation system, which means that if you declare
true,
yourself as a part of the LGBTQIA plus
absolutely,
community, doesn't mean that there is a job guaranteed. You come with the talent, and then we will not discriminate against any other factor. That should be the underlying point,
absolutely.
really.
And
Yeah.
good that you brought that point, because we
Yeah.
can do biggest disservice if
Yeah.
we someone comes and say, "Oh, you got it because you are from
Right.
LGBTQ talent," right? That's a big, and we have
Right.
heard that argument and a cross argument for women employees,
Yeah.
right? I mean,
Yeah.
if you go over aggressive, right, in our excitement to improve the
Right.
gender diversity, so we
Yeah.
go, I mean, beyond what we should be doing, and that's a disservice to the talent that we are
It is.
talking, right?
It
Absolutely.
is. Yeah.
So Anupa, coming to you, you are very deep into this subject, right? And you're committed to the cause. What trends are you seeing? I mean, we are just building the context so that we know where we are, and then we'll dive straight into the sharper question on how do we begin as an organization. But what trends are you seeing? I mean, for example, do you, and we are talking about organizations here, right? I mean, today's focus is more on the, inclusion, LGBT plus Q plus inclusion at the workplace, right? What trends are you seeing in maybe recent past, last 4, 5 years, 6 years? For example, is it an elite thing to do? For example, MNCs who have this policy in the US or UK somewhere, they start doing it in India, or it is, the smaller towns, tier two, tier three cities, or it's a phenomenon which is seen more in metros, right? Any particular sector, IT, we talk about, oh, they are much more inclusive, right? What about manufacturing? What about mining? Do you see those things? What trends are you seeing at the corporate?
Thanks, Sanjeev. So, like you rightly said, I think initially the companies that started their journey on LGBTQ inclusion, I think most of them were multinational companies who had something similar happening in their parent organization outside of India. And it also came as a mandate that in India, you need to build in these practices and you start the process. So, I remember way back, maybe even 20 years back, IBM already had, I think, an ERG on pride, etc., when hardly anybody was talking about LGBTQ inclusion. But
And I
today,
worked there. I worked there, so I have
okay,
personal experience. Yes, I was there for
okay,
11 years, and I owe a lot to IBM. I would say I don't hesitate to call it, because they were premature in terms of
yes.
their thinking in reality, way ahead of others. Absolutely. Thanks for pointing that out.
Yeah, thanks. And at that point, I used to work in the EAP services, and I think IBM was my fourth client. And
Oh,
I think they really helped to hone us also and develop our services because they, like you said, very premature, very early in many of the practices. And right. But today, coming back to your question, today we see many Indian companies also and across industries who are actually adopting and seeing the merit in being inclusive towards the LGBTQ community. So, in the recent past, like we have done extensive work with Tata Steel, which is into and with their mining division across
wow.
various mines in Jharkhand. So, I personally visited small towns like West Bakaro and Kalinganagar and Noamandi and places which I don't think I would ever have had an opportunity to go also. And they have hired transgender people. Today, there are more than 150 transgender people who are working
Wow.
across these mines in Tata Steel. So they also see this equal to what? So they had started a program for women to operate their heavy earth moving machinery called Tejaswini, and they started a similar, in the same year, a similar program for the transgender people in West Bokaro, and then that success story led to other places. And we have other manufacturing companies also based on, one organization starts, that success story actually cascades, and there are many other people who want to then take this further, and we are seeing that happening. So it's not just, yes, what started with IT MNCs, today we are seeing it across various companies. I'm sure, Bina, even in retail you would see the presence. We see in Shoppers Stop, we see in cosmetics, we see across various industries where you will see a presence of LGBTQ people, and companies actually proactively going and looking at, even if they don't have an employee or they're not hiring, they at least start with policies and other culture building initiatives, clearly seeing a merit in being an inclusive organization. And like Sanjeev, you said, I think one big factor is also that if you want to attract talent, irrespective of gender, sexuality, or any other, across diversity, I think people look at what kind of an organization or what kind of culture do you have, and that's a big pull to attract good talent.
Any talent for that matter, right?
Yes,
Not
any
only
talent.
restricted to.
Yes, any talent.
Great. Thanks for sharing that. Anyone who wants to add to this? Any other trend that you're seeing, Beena, Param, before we move to the next question? Anything else?
Let Param go here. Param, you're on mute, I think.
So sorry, I don't, disagree or, anything, but I'd just like to say that, it's very conducive for organizations like, Anupama mentioned, that you see the trend. And that brings us to the other aspect is what are the social and, cultural and biases that actually stop people and stop organizations, because organizations are not just brick and mortar, they are made of people, right? Everything is driven by humans. And when you see the change around you, you also want to become, you get swayed with the change, right? So it's a positive wave, always takes people along in that wave. Yeah. So, lead the way, show the way, live the way. And we start to see much more of what we are wanting to see. We start to see much more of that.
Beena, you wanted to add anything to this? Any
No,
trend?
I was very amazed with Anupama's example of where she
Yes,
visited
I mean,
the actual
amazing.
places. I think it really stood out. Yeah. Thank you, Anupama, for doing this for our country. Yeah.
Thanks. I think my pleasure. And I think I also feel very fortunate that I got the opportunity, honestly.
You decided, no, I mean, we all had those opportunities. You decided to jump into that and make a difference, actually, right? So, I mean, so fine. So let's move on. Param, to you, where do we begin? I think that's the key question here, right? I mean, let's paint a picture that many of us who desire to begin LGBTQ inclusion at the workplace, but many of us, we struggle with, we don't know whether we have someone in the community. Should we wait for them to join in and then start something around this? Should I start before? So key question is, how do we begin, right? It's simple, it's easy to ask, but I think difficult to unpack it and answer. But I think collectively, let's try to find some answer to this. But why don't you begin?
So in my experience, I would say there is no straight formula, there's no template, there's no formula. Any little thing that gets the conversation started and the awareness and the intent started is a good place to start, right? It can start with having a person from the community who then becomes a active voice ally, and others feel safe to talk about them. They become proponents and are consultants to improve our I would say orientation guides, our policies, practices, gives inputs for our benefits. That's one way. The other way is that you lead the way. You actually model some of the work that Beena and Anupama were already talking about. Start with policies and practices, make them more inclusive, even for people who are not out and loud, right? If you start to build policies and practices that absolutely shows your intent of support and being an ally, people will feel more comfortable in coming out finally to say, I am part of the community and I'm proud to be part of this company, right? Like basics like insurances covering partners, because those are the ones that really, really impact every individual, right? All of us. And similarly, impacts individuals from the community who sometimes don't have the legal backing, for example, POSH, right? We all know that the law currently actually vocally only talks about women harassment, right? So go above and beyond, That's a good place to start as well. Talk to leadership to say we want to do this just because, not because it's the right thing to do. It is also because we feel, like Beena said, we don't know the numbers. We don't know people if they are bringing their whole self to work and they feel psychologically safe, to be out and loud, right? So start anywhere, I would say. That's the formula. Whatever feels right in the context of the organization, leadership, the culture and maturity they are at. Start small, but start. And you will we will all start to see the difference when you have more and more people reaching out saying, I'd like to join. You have vocal advocates and champions and who evangelize some of the work that people are doing. Being seen and heard in the industry is another way to begin, right? Which means if you are seen actually talking about it, people will believe that you're walking the talk. There is only to a point that you can just do tokenism. You'll have to follow that up with real intent and real work and going deep, right? So start anywhere. It's long past due, I would say.
Long past due, absolutely. So I think today we'll really focus on what a few things. So I think one thing I'm getting from you, Param, which is low-hanging fruit. Update your policies, make it visible, communicate widely while you're hiring in your community with your employees, and be very intentional about it, be deliberate about
Yes,
it. That is one thing that
absolutely.
we could possibly do. And so let us see. Let's maybe go to Beena. Beena, what else? Is it then start an ERG group? It is starting some communication framework around this. Is it, what else can we do to begin with? As a starter's kit, as we call it, right? A starter's kit, toolkits.
Yeah.
What else?
Starter kit would be, I think, get yourself convinced on why you're doing this and that you really want to do this first if you're the one who's driving the initiative within the organization, because it will require a lot of strength. There will be resistance on the way, there will be feedback that you don't like on the way, there will be non-success on the way. For example, if we had this talk today and we had only one attendee from the outside, it would have been very discouraging. Now we've got 38 people, listening to this.
And we have
So,
additional people on the LinkedIn Live. Let's be inclusive. I mean,
yeah,
I don't have that
absolutely.
number, but I'm sure there'll be some people on
Yeah, yeah.
LinkedIn Live as well. Okay.
Yeah. So you need people to encourage you if that is your motivator. And if you don't, and then, you really want to go back and think about stopping the initiative. So you have to have a lot of strength because it is a long drawn process. Even the country that we are in, the topic is a little dicey. Like you can't have always a conversation without getting into too many debates about everybody agreeing to the same point about inclusion on this matter every time. So there are going to be too many challenges. So convince yourself about what you want to do. After yourself, I think executive sponsorship is going to be the most important item that you need to care about, because if you don't have the support from the top, and if you don't have a leader or leaders in plural talking about it, uh, or being seen at the events that you have, or really telling other people that this team or this individual is handling this initiative and why it is important for all of you to support it. If that voice is missing, then there's very little that you can move around, because this initiative may not be resource heavy. You may not require too much of fund to do it, but you will require a lot of strength and support from all the people. You will require a lot of participation. It needs a lot of people to talk about it. It needs a lot of culture building. It needs too much of acceptance. It needs a great deal amount of training and understanding. The topic may be out of reach from the understanding point of view as well. Let's recognize that it's not necessary that everybody's maybe not supporting or opposing it for no reason. Maybe there is no understanding, so we have to break that barrier of, does everybody know what the full form is? What does it mean? Just because there is a community, are we supposed to, are we forced to support it in a way that gives more jobs, gives more money, whatever? No, that's not what we're talking about. So I think clarity of purpose has to be very, very high, right?
That's a good
And
point.
yeah. And then, like Param said, you have to take the first step, because we can talk all about it. We can read research papers. We can share, why ERGs are formed, how they happen, what are the resource groups that are available. But if you don't take the first step, then it's more voice, and it's good like for an ESG report or something. But if people don't see action around it, then there's not too much you can achieve, because anyway you'll have to take that journey. So taking the first step of courage is very, very important over there. And then there's too much material available globally and in India
True.
online. even in organizations. There must be some consultants who've joined this call today. There are organizations that support the cause and that teach corporations how to run this initiative. There are people who are doing it individually. There are allies within organizations. There's too much intelligence around the topic that's available. We have to learn how to capitalize that information, because information is not going to be enough. We have to take that information and get started in terms of action. So reading up on it and understanding and taking those steps is going to be very, very important. There are organizations like Stonewall, there's Pride Circle. There are so many more globally available that will tell you about the events that are happening in the organization. They tell you about how to have hiring drives and which are those drives, and which which partner companies are partnering with them to do it. There is a website that will tell you on how to form an ERG in the first place, step by step. What is it that you
Mhm.
need to do in very simple words, right? Then there are people who tell you, what are those initiatives in small or large terms that you can take within the organization to have all of these. So too much resource that is available on the internet today.
Intent,
Okay.
if you have the strong purpose and intent, right?
Yeah,
And
right,
then follow this.
right.
So I
Yeah,
wanted to ask you, I did not
yeah,
want to break your thought. I think great,
yeah,
practical, simple suggestions you're making to start with.
yeah,
Do you believe that
yeah.
getting leadership commitment could be a good first starting point? Because do
It
that and
is.
educate them, keep convince
Yeah,
them why they're doing, because then rest of will follow. Because if you start
it is.
maybe from the policy, right? For
It
example,
is.
as Param is rightly saying, right?
Yeah,
In our busy schedule and business, the race that we're running for making certain quarter end numbers, right?
yeah,
They say
yeah,
it may not even get to the point, right?
yeah,
The
yeah.
discussion point, the table in the discussion point, right? So I think
Right.
getting that would be one very important first step, right?
It is the
Any
first
trick?
step. Yeah,
Any trick? I'm sure you would have done it few times. So any
I've done
trick
it.
to that? You have done it.
I've
So
I've done it and I've failed also, and then I've passed also. So you have to be very open and willing to fail as well. So start small, fail, come back again, try again, succeed. That cycle is going to be very, very important. So I remember in one of the organizations, which I will not name for obvious reasons, there was this Pride Day, and I said, that we're doing so much corp com, and the team was sort of with us, and we used to make content together. And we said that, why we're not writing anything on, Pride Day or something, just as awareness. We've never done it before. Of course, I don't know how the senior leadership team will look at it. And, it's your job to convince them. But what do you think? And the first level itself was a barrier for me, which said that, why is it important? As long as you're doing Holi, Diwali, Independence Day, it's fine. Wishing
Rangoli,
people.
making Rangoli HR,
No, no,
right? I mean,
I am not Rangoli HR, so I will not subscribe to that thought, right?
no,
So
I brought
yeah.
this up with purpose, on
Yeah,
purpose.
I know. Yeah. So that was the first barrier, but after so much of speaking and bringing it up at various forums and occasions whenever, because also I don't give up so easily. So I used different occasions to speak about it. And in the next year, we did have a post, and it was as simple as that. Now having a post is not a big deal. It's not about the design. It's not about the, who's releasing it and saying what. It is about the company acknowledging it that the topic is important, and the topic is important, and hence we are supporting it, right? So we also want to join the wagon of being a good company where everybody is supporting the cause, and hence I'm joining it. Even if that was the purpose, I think it was mission
Worth it.
successful. So it
Mm.
took 365 days, but good, proud about it. Yeah.
Great.
Mhm.
So Anupa, coming to you, I'm sure you, in your passion, in your profession, you professionally you are committed to this cause, and you are supporting a lot of organizations to kickstart and get into this. What has been your experience? Anything else that companies should take into some baby steps, initial baby steps? We are talking about the organizations where who are intending to get into it right now, not there, right? We are not talking about those organizations who have really done it and they are at an maturity, higher maturity level. We're not talking about that. We're talking about most of us where we are struggling to even start, right? What is your further suggestion in addition to what Param said and in addition to what Veena said? Where do we begin?
So, yeah, so I'd like to share about an organization with whom we kind of
Sure.
kickstarted, and it's a small company, they have a few hundred employees, and they don't hire in large numbers.
Okay.
So when they are talking about increasing representation of even for LGBTQ, that increasing the number was always a challenge for the organization for any group, because that's what's their size. But and we started this conversation on let's bring in represent, let's have conversations, etc., on LGBTQ inclusion. So Again, the thing was that we're not yet ready. People don't know much. I think we're a little conservative. I don't know how it's going to go,
Sorry to stop
etc.
you. Sorry to
Yeah.
stop you, but I think I hear this invariably. We are
Yeah.
yet not ready.
Yes.
What ready? I
Yeah.
mean, we are not yet ready for this. First, we are, companies take it in sequence. First, we'll go to gender diversity, right?
Yes.
Then we'll go to anything else, and they just stay there. And I hear this conversation very often. We are not
Yeah.
ready for this culturally. So I think that's the first thing that we need to break that barrier.
Absolutely. So fortunately, I think one of the things which Beena brought in that you need to have the leadership buy-in, and I think we had the support of one of the HR leader, actually the HR head, who
Mhm.
happened to attend one of the public sessions that I had done on transgender inclusion, and I think, and it was for a group of HR leaders, and I think that was a starting point because there
Ah,
this person felt that okay, there is merit and there are so many other people also sitting in this forum and they're all somehow understanding the merit, and I think as an individual itself they were they were at least very compassionate individual, and
mhm.
they actually said okay, let's start in some way. So one of the first things they did was the policies independently because they didn't know whether they were going to hire, or they never even thought that the so one thing which we forget is also in the existing employee strength itself, you could have people from the community. And when you
Exactly.
do these
In our
policy
saying.
change, yes. So they did that. And then the next step, the next year, what we did was we invited, during the Pride Month, we invited speakers from the community to come and share their stories and interact with the employees. And that was a great, motivation for the organization because they saw the way the employees received these human stories. They interacted with people from the community, and that gave them the hope that, it's the fact that we are not ready is not true. We are all human beings, and there is a whole bunch of our employees who are compassionate, who are understanding. Maybe a small percentage is still not ready, but
Mhm.
a large majority is definitely willing to know more, willing to interact more. Some of these employees actually went back saying, why don't we have colleagues from the community working with us?
Wow.
Why aren't we doing? Right. So I think even these kind of small sessions, if you get, guest speakers to come and speak, I have seen that in many organizations where the employees themselves become the advocates for inclusion of
Wow.
LGBTQ community. So your job of not being ready and being ready gets a little easier because they start promoting. In fact, they come up with the idea that let's set up an ERG. Right? And the ERG normally you see has got allies first, and then you'll start seeing the community members coming in gradually. So
Great.
yeah, so
So I think
that's
we got
something
some
which I've seen.
very interesting points. If I just summarize as of now, I think few things we can do. First thing is your leadership buying in, which is the toughest thing to do. If you're lucky, if you're, don't give up, right? Be passionate yourself and educate yourself through this session, for example, and many other sessions that Anupma is doing. And many other resources are there. Pride Circle. Srini, in fact, I had invited. He was traveling. Otherwise, would have been lovely to have him also here, right? So I think that is one, and then policies work. A simple thing like policies, create an ERG, bring external speakers from the community to talk, so that I think just a perception, right? If you interact more and more, you expose yourself, then I think some of the myths will go away. So one of the question which I can see here, which from Sandeep and which we had received earlier also, that I think inclusion is good. And another question that I received from one of the participant was, what kind of roles should we earmark for trans community, with the question? That was, I was surprised with the question itself. And what's the number that you should aim at, right? And so in my view, I would like comment, Param, from you or anyone else. In my view, there is no role. It could be CEO, it could be CHRO, it could be marketing head, it could be operator, it could be mining engineer, it could be any. So there is no particular role, right? Param, any
I
comment from
was
you?
I was about to answer that question with another question. What kind of role cannot be done by an
That's
LGBTQI,
a great way of answering that.
right?
I like that.
So it's not about the role. It's about what skills and capabilities the person have. How can we grow the individual like we grow any other person in the organization? What are their aspirations and how best we can support them through learning, certification, on the job experience, opportunities, having mentors, supporting them with the right set of people, managers and colleagues who will, collaborate and partner and, be another person who can grow others, right? So it's not about which roles, it is about what the person brings to the table and how we can help the person grow.
I think one
It's
sentence that you
always about
said,
that.
I really like what they can't do. I mean, that's the best way of answering that.
Yeah,
Why even that question? Why even that question? Sandeep, I hope that answers your question, the comment that you're making. And I think while we are talking, I will request all the participants, I'm sure in your respective areas, you are passionate about this topic. That's why you are here, right? If you want to share, please put in the chat any experience that you have, any other suggestion that you have that we must do for kickstarting about LGBTQs and at the workplace. What else could be done, right? While we carry on with our discussion. Now, Param, coming to you, one question which to all of you, but Param, I'm starting from you. How do we know, in management, in operations, whatever we do, sometimes we do a benchmarking, as is, where is assessment, where we are today, where we want to go, right? And what steps will take us there, right? As simple as that. As far as LGBTQ plus inclusion is concerned, how do we know this typical answer that we get, oh, we are not ready? How do we know we are today as an organization culturally? And because we have to accept the current reality, if we don't, we will fail, right? We must know where we are. So what's a good way, Param, if you have any suggestion, how do we know is there any assessment tool or any surveys, or how do we know?
There are actually, like for example, not the ones, like not any certification or sort of that, but there are pulse surveys
The
that,
certification,
that
absolutely, we are. I'm not interested
right,
in any
right,
certification that we get,
right,
but a
right.
real awareness about where we are, what our
Yeah.
challenges are. Okay.
So there are ways to gauge, both in terms of questionnaires, pulse, emotions. Also, the way I would say my lived experience is to understand from people on the ground, right? What are they facing? How have they been supported? Little things, Sanjeev, I can mention. So our first batch of rainbow interns, we do this intentional program of bringing in rainbow interns, and that has really gained some good inertia in the recent years because they've been successfully groomed. They're doing mature, successful roles in the organization in various tracks and streams. Right. And the couple of things that we faced is their documentation is never right. It's a vicious circle for them, right? They have their documentation in their birth name, and then they go through the legal process of whatever our government prescribes in terms of showing an advertisement in the papers and keeping that document, trying to update their Aadhaar card, and thereby all of their documentation. It is very, very tough, very, very tough. Okay, because the process is not simple, because of cultural biases, because of the way that we as Indians are not supportive in anything that is not usual. They face a lot of challenge because then they're addressed by their dead names. All their paperwork is in their dead names. They go to buy property, it's all in their dead name, right? So one by one, if we really want to help them out, talk about lived support where they need help. Their partner needs insurance, backup. Let's say, how do we help them out, right? They
And
need
Param,
legal paperwork.
Param,
How do we help them out?
these interns that you're talking about, sorry to interrupt you, but these are just, I'm very curious and intrigued to know what's happening on this. Sounds interesting, right? Rainbow interns. You get from the engineering colleges, management, or
Yes. So now we have started approaching engineering colleges, but the first few batches, we like Anupama's organization In Harmony, Tweet Foundation, we have Periphery, who have been training people to be making them job ready. We've taken the first set of interns from them, and today we are also visiting campuses for intentional hiring on persons with disabilities and persons from the community, right? We do lateral hiring as well. All jobs are posted on LinkedIn and things like that, right? So we take those interns and we help solve their problems, right? And then they feel that, yes, they're ready. They hold dignified lives. They can go out and rent a flat for themselves and things like that, right? So
This is
every
interesting.
little thing helps. Yeah,
So I
it's
think
not just about mouth service. It's not just about, oh, an environment, oh, events, oh, we have speakers. It's about how can you support each and every individual who are struggling and do need that help in any way possible. So we had a person, our PF department's payroll department's person actually went and petitioned to the Gurgaon PF officer saying, this has been lying on your desk for a year. We need this documentation changed.
Wow.
Things like that. Pressure. Because individuals, no matter how many times they go and visit, it's like just, the file is being pushed from one table to the other, right? So things like that, I think that is when the organization is ready, because lived experiences tell you that they are ready, they are doing well, they have a mentor. When you do check-ins, they feel that, yes, I am being supported for trainings and growth. I do have check-ins with my manager. And the organization is getting ready in pockets, and then you spread it. You say, okay, this is a success story in this team, team A. Team B, are you ready to take interns, rainbow interns from this year's batch? So you share success stories, and you kind of help the organization learn from one unit to the other unit and replicate the successes.
Yeah, Anupma, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I just want to add that so we have worked very closely with Publicis Sapient on, how they're hiring, especially the transgender people. And I think from personal experience, I have seen how I think the entire leadership team has owned this agenda. And the first year, last year, when we had done the trans employment mail, and after that, they had organized one networking. And everybody spoke about experiences. Everybody was a champion and advocate for LGBTQ inclusion seamlessly. It was not so. I think the intentional hiring, the intention behind it had, totally it had seeped in. And it has just become a norm now in the organization. And I think when we also meet and we interact and we learn a lot actually from organizations like this, and then we also carry the story ahead, and then again, like I said, the cascading effect, and there are so many others who feel that, okay, this was possible here, I'm sure we can also do something like this. So the rainbow internship actually, I think, has inspired many other organizations to set up such kind of programs, and then actually scale or bring people into your organization culture, get them ready to work in your particular organization and in a particular.
Great. So Bina, let me come to you. And I want to stay back on that question. While this is another interesting thing, how to get this talent, right? How can we be creative in getting the talent and enabling them to onboard properly and assimilate it to the organization? But my original question, I will again go back. Is there a way to know where we are today, or don't worry about it, just get going? Bina.
I think in most subjects that include some amount of transformation, two things have really worked for me. One is the focus groups, and one is actual surveys. And if they're anonymous, even good. But I think people are very courageous today, so it doesn't really matter, who's saying what. We use it for the purpose for which it is set up. I think doing an actual survey and asking people, are you ready or not, through different questions. What if you had a co-worker who identifies as a part of the community, or what if you have to interact with your stakeholder who is, a member of the trans community? Very basic questions like these, which will help them, I think, visualize what it feels like in a normal working day, to assess what is the current sentiment around the entire activity. I think generally by asking, you get all answers. So you can ask them either verbally, or you can, write a survey down, send it to them. I think this is the most practical approach to it here.
So have you done, for example, Bina, a specific survey, employee survey, asking how comfortable you would be about this, working, people from talent from LGBTQ community working along with you, and et cetera, et cetera. And you've done a specific, or a part of the survey questions are around these, and you got people responded to that?
I have not done a survey. It has been on my mind for a while, but yeah, I have heard of it.
This is a practice. And Anupa, have you seen this practice somewhere happening? Would you like to elaborate? Because I'm very keen to know, as a starting point, just to do a survey, how ready we are, and then take actions accordingly will be a wise thing to do. So any other additional thing, Param, if you have, but Anupa, starting with you, anything else?
So we have done, in fact, sometimes it's done as part of the entire diversity inclusion survey itself, and one section on the LGBTQ perspective itself. It could be like situations like Bina is saying, so various ways, so a qualitative and quantitative combination. normally what we do is we start with a quantitative, and then we do FGDs to get a little more insight. And this actually helps us to then structure that how do we go do that, the especially organizations which are just starting the journey, then what is how ready is the organization, what should we do, etc. That it helps in that. Those who have already done a journey, this is very useful to do because it actually helps you to also understand little more as to how are the employees at large perceiving inclusion at the workplace. So sometimes it, things like you're giving a special status, those kind of things could also come up. Then you'll know that, okay, I need to address this in a way that everybody feels included. While we need to do an intentional, the equity has to be taken care of, but not at the cost of like, how do we take everybody along in the journey? So I think it helps you to bring that focus also. Though I think I also subscribe a lot to what Param is saying, that, being in touch with the employee who is from the community and knowing how they are experiencing the various initiatives, I think that at least gives a pulse of, are we doing the right thing as per the community?
Okay. And Param,
And to
anything you
add
want
to
to
that, yeah,
add?
just to add to that, Sanjeev, actually, there are surveys available. They're like standard templates. Like there is something I know. I think just a while back, Meena was referring to Stonewall. Stonewall, I know does surveys on lived
Okay.
experiences of LGBTQI people. There's a National Health Interview Survey. Pew's Research Center does surveys for employers on LGBTQI issues, on societal attitudes. Then I remember something that we had done long back as a community marketing and insight, CMI LGBTQI community survey.
Wow.
So there are ways and means and templates available. Uh, but these would, you can slip in a couple of questions within the organization's own engagement and pulse survey as well. We don't need to construct a separate survey to get to know, how ready are people, right?
Could be
And
part of your
like,
normal employee engagement
yes,
survey,
yes,
employee pulse
yes.
surveys.
Normal
Right?
employment surveys, engagement surveys, pulse surveys that you have. You can slip in questions to see how people feel about it, right? And most important than not, if the leadership is ready, I think the organization's ready, because a lot of it is top down. Budget, sincerity, intent, being seen and heard, walking the talk, all of it starts from there. When we see our leaders, emulating behaviors of advocates and allies and standing up for what we believe is the right, then a lot of it falls into place as well. It's far more difficult if you don't have leadership alignment and sponsorship.
Mhm. All right. So now, again, coming back to the same question of how to attract talent, right? What could we do creatively, right? Uh, so, I mean, Anupma, you did mention the work that you have done, but Bina, from your experience, anything you want to share? How can we be creative in terms of branding organization as a place which is inclusive, safe for people from LGBT talent community to come and join? And are there creative ways to improve that percentage
Definitely.
without a quota, without a number, but
Yeah.
just encouraging more and more people to come? So, what are
Yeah.
some best practices around that?
And I will come to that. Before that, I had a question for Anupama from the previous segue, which was, how do you get people to really identify? And you can let us know, Anupama, because you've been helping organizations really hire. So what is that that you use to help people actually come out and identify as a part of a community, and then you can sort of go and hire, because without that identification, you won't know who you're really hiring. And we'll come to that. And to your question, Sanjeev, I think
Yeah.
success stories have really played a great part in ensuring the continuity of any initiative that you want to sort of increase the base for, or you want to repeat it, or you want to see more success in the future within an organization. It doesn't matter what the context of the initiative is, but if you show that you have a case study which shows you some amount of success, say, this is the first batch of 5 people that you've hired, these are the positions that they're holding, and it doesn't matter if it's a top or a bottom position. It is the fact that you've gone ahead, they have identified, you have had the courage to hire. These are their stories. They have either seen resistance or complete acceptance by the team because of the great cultural initiatives that you have done to increase education and acceptance within the organization. And this is their performance over the last year, and they're going to come on stage, and they're going to talk about it. I think there's nothing further that you need to do, because you're showing that as an organization you're ready. You're ready to not necessarily to call it out, but because it is the first initial stages where you're trying to do something new. And in the future, you may not need to call out because, today many people don't like it, and people have stopped saying also that, this is a woman leader and that is a leader, but that is a woman leader. So that also lasted for a long, pretty number of years.
True.
I see it going away very fast now. So after a few years, if organizations like ours continue to do the good work that all of us are doing, I think corporate India will be ready to do away with this. This is part of community. That is not part of community. This is special hiring. That is not a special hiring. We will not even need all of these just because we're in the initial stages of
I
doing
wish,
something
I
new.
wish, I wish we reach
Yeah,
that stage soon, but I think as
yeah,
of now,
yeah,
just
mm,
highlighting is important
yeah,
because make it
yeah,
visible is important. So one thing that you're
correct.
saying
Yeah,
is branding your
yeah,
organization and story.
yeah.
I mean, storytelling is becoming
Storytelling. Yeah,
such a great skill, such an
yeah,
important skill for HR and for leadership team, right? So that you
yes,
can narrate success stories. That's biggest influencer. And
correct.
other than so that is one. And other than that, Param, in your view, any other thing that has worked well,
Yes, yes. I was about
practical,
to add
simple and
two.
practical? Yes.
I have two suggestions. One, be very visible in Pride events. Sponsor community events, Pride parades, to demonstrate that you have your support and make public statements. Right? It's very difficult to
Mm.
retract from public statements when you're visible, right? Which will actually be visible to the job seekers from the community, right? So that is one way to attract the right people. Secondly, what has worked for us is initially we have also posted job openings on LGBTQI job seekers job boards. So there are a few in India. I can name two. Pink Jobs is one.
Would you
There
mind,
is Mist.
Param, when you're talking, when you have time, put it in the chat so that the audience
Sure,
can capture
sure.
it. Also, some of these surveys that you're talking about, there were some few names that you rattled.
Right. I can
I
do that.
don't
I
want to
can do
miss
that.
on that. If you don't mind,
Sure.
when you're not
I will
speaking,
put that on
put
there.
that on the chat so that we all can capture that because that's a very useful resource and information that you're sharing, and we don't want to miss on that, right?
Right,
So,
right. Diverse. So posting job openings on diverse job boards is also another way to attract the right talent. And of course, through word of mouth through the community. If you are connected and you have friends and you're closely connected to people within the community, send the word out saying, here are the JDs, here are new openings, here are hiring opportunities, internship opportunities. Send it out to your groups. If anybody's
mhm.
interested, we can evaluate them.
Is
These
there
are
any
additional
way?
stuff.
Is there any way, Param? You talked about JD. I mean, JD is a JD, right? Is there
Yes.
any way for your JD to look very inclusive? That a we are welcoming people from LGBTQ community also. How is it done?
So the first thing what we had done, I think 5 years back, is inclusive language, right?
Okay.
Avoid gender terminology, right? Make sure there are no biases reflecting in the way a job describes responsibilities, right? Even perceived nuances have to be straightened out.
And
Yeah.
today you have
So gender
technology
neutral
tools which
language.
can analyze a JD and say it is gender neutral or
At
not,
that
right?
point in time, we did not use technology or tools. Actually, the
Okay.
team sat down and reviewed JDs, and
Uh,
we kind of started. We put some toolkits in place for hiring practices. Interviewing guides were reviewed, just to wean out any discriminatory gendered
then
language or gendered nuances and things like that. Right? That goes a long way in making sure that you're not only talking, you're walking the talk as well, right? And anybody who's reading a JD feels it's a fair and equitable job description.
But do you write? I mean, let me ask a very pointed question, and Bina to you and Anupan to you. Do we write specifically that talent from LGBTQ plus community are welcome? For example, something like that. Is it rude or it is inclusive? Is it welcomed? What's your point here? I mean, honestly, I'm a little confused, but your views on this, Bina?
sure. So, like I said, I think because we are at the initial stages of getting this smartly done for corporate India, it may help to call it out for a while because
Mm.
even if you go to job portals now, you say, diversity candidates preferred. So I fail to understand what do you mean by diversity candidates? You're actually saying that you're going to reserve the role for a woman, of course, based on capability. But, women preferred, or some will say, it's an outdoor sales job, so male candidates only, things
Only
like
male
that.
candidates, people
Only
write
male
sometimes.
candidates, yeah. So we have that kind of differentiation based on whatever conditions, maybe working conditions or certain reservations for jobs. Then there were mandates about having 2% of women on the board because people, we are not crossing the glass ceiling. Different kinds of reasons for why we do this. So I think in the first few years, while we're still struggling to, find a foot into the door for having an inclusive place for the community, it may be advisable to call it out. Yeah, I think it's a good idea to write. Yeah, yeah.
Anupa, what's your view? Is it okay to write? Have you seen it happening? And anyone in the audience, have you seen it happening, in your respective organization? Do you write, okay, people from LGBT community are welcome to join on merit, of course?
Yeah, I have seen it written. So when the only thing is when you write only LGBTQ people apply,
Oh,
then I think sometimes it's drawn a flag also. But I think calling out that, we invite community members also to apply for the job, that's perfectly fine. What many organizations do is that they also route it through, and this is just to also answer Bina's question, that how do we know somebody is from the community? We actually work with community members, and our entire sourcing is done through in collaboration with people from the community-based groups, etc. So when you post this in those community groups, then automatically it is very clear that this is meant for somebody from the community. And there are, like, for example, we work extensively in the LGBTQ spectrum, more with the transgender community. So the companies say that, this is for transgender people. We are running an internship program for transgender people. Then we write, actually, this is for transgender people, and we need to then specify that it's not for the LGB or the other
And
categories.
Venkatesh, do you have any additional point? I seen you have written some very useful tips on how to make a gender neutral or inclusive JDs. Or anything in addition, in a crisp manner, you want to add to this? And thank you for contributing here. Venkatesh, you want to unmute
I
and
think
talk?
somebody needs to unmute him, I think. From
Is
the
it?
admin? Yeah.
No? Is it? So
Yeah,
maybe,
the one
okay.
who sent us the invite needs to unmute
Okay.
him.
If Vijaya or Kalyan, if you
He
can
should be able to unmute himself.
just
But let
unmute,
me
just
just
try.
see.
Okay, we'll try that. Otherwise, I think we'll look into your comments, and thank you for contributing to this, right? Now, Param, coming to you, I mean, when we talk about, I think once we have crossed that initial stage of, starting leadership buying in and making some baby steps, right? Then it's an ongoing communication and education and sensitization, right? I mean, that's important. And it's not a lot of people come to us, we do work on DI, that can we do one program? I said, transformation is not going to happen by one 90-minute session. Let me tell you, there are many, many more things to be done. So don't expect, one of the organization I won't name, we had gone, they said, what is the ROI of this program, 60 minutes program? I said, let me caution you, if you think there'll be transformation by 60 minutes session, it's not going to happen, but many, many such events, you have to do sensitization trainings, and then a lot other things have to happen on the ground, policies, workplace design, etc., which will take you there, right? And it's not going to happen overnight. So no quick fixes here, right? Now, the question is, what kind of trainings, any tips from you, Bina, and Anupma, to you, Param, to you also? I think these are very essential core program like sensitization program, inclusive language program, or allyship, etc. Do you have some tips for us to pick up that these are 5-6 top programs which one should do if you are in the initial stage of this DI journey of LGBT inclusion? Bina, starting from you.
Yeah, there would not be top 4 or 5. I think there's too much material available, Sanjeev, too many organizations and too many trainers. So picking up just the top 2, 3 may not be the best. It depends on who is sort of available to you in your contact list, in your network. What can you do online? What is the actual? It also has to be relevant to your context. Now, every organization also is different. So it depends on the maturity level of whom you're talking to within the organization. And what is it that you're trying to push? Do you want to push awareness in year one? Do you want to move to hiring in year next? What is your priority? After deciding that, only you will have to pick up very, very specific need-based initiatives and very need-based trainings. Globally, within India, I think too many people who are doing it already. I mean, we'll just have to experiment for some time, Sanjeev.
Just to experiment. Okay.
Yeah.
And Anupa, from your experience, any suggestion that I mean, I know we are not prescribing anything. This discussion is not very prescriptive that you should do these
Yeah.
two trainings, but I think people may get some ideas. I think Beena, what we are all trying to do is helping people who have intention, but they're
Right.
struggling to where to start, right? So
Yeah.
we are giving them some way forward, right? At least through this discussion.
Topic awareness would be a good place to start first.
Awareness. Okay. Anything else, Anupma, in your experience, you'd like to just guide us? And
I think, see, one of the core reasons I think why there is resistance is also the whole mindset or the biases that people have.
biases.
So the unconscious bias training, whichever is being done in whichever format, do include aspects of understanding the LGBTQ community or people with disabilities. So we all hold biases more because we are not aware or we've not been exposed. It's not that we're intentionally being
True.
discriminatory at all. So that training, if you can make it more holistic and include all these aspects, I think that will go a long way. And besides that, yes, having sensitization programs, awareness sessions, basically decoding the LGBTQ, like the gender, sex, sexuality, like what does the LGB stand for? What does transgender stand for? What are their realities in India or globally? What are some of the legal frameworks which are available? So I think all of that will also go a long way in you know helping to create a
True.
more inclusive space.
And maybe allyship also, because a lot of
Allyship,
organizations,
yes,
because you can't do it
absolutely,
alone. You must have
absolutely.
allies, right? And training what allies could do, and doing specific sessions on HR, because HR and your ERG group, they need to be, their understanding needs to be at a different level, right? A very specialized, focused, little more advanced knowledge session, or exposing them to various special events outside where their knowledge is at a much higher level could also be helpful, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely. And I remember like when we were doing with some of the manufacturing companies which have a whole medical facility because they are in townships, etc. We did sensitization programs with the medical doctors. And contrary to what we think, actually doctors don't have a great understanding. Also because the medical courses did not cover aspects so clearly. So this program was like very useful for them, and they also need to know that when people come into the dispensary, how do they address that? The prefer the name, the pronouns, questions like where do I admit them? Right?
Mm.
Which ward should they go to? What are some of the infrastructure changes that I need to do? So what we need to see is that what is this organization? What is the area of business? Who are the people? So like we always insist, start the sensitization across, not just the top, but right till the bottom, your security, your housekeeping staff, everybody needs to be sensitized because a sense of discrimination or in unknowingly, you could have microaggressions because somebody is not gone through a sensitization or somebody
Mm.
doesn't understand this space. So you need to go through, I think you have to just look and customize how you're going to do this program or the sensitization initiative.
Do you think there's a case for, because the awareness level is at various levels, right? I mean, there could be people, and you're hiring people in and out, right? You don't know people are coming with what knowledge. Do you think, Beena to you, Anupma to you, Param, is there a case for like business conduct guidelines, mandatory, POSH certification you have to do, right? It's
Yeah.
mandatory, it's critical to the business. Or business conduct guidelines, it is mandatory. Every year you have to take a refresher course, right? We all do that, isn't it? Is
Yeah.
there a case for doing this for, maybe DI awareness, for example, making it mandatory? You have to go through.
I'll take that question. So, the one way to think about it, and it's been successful here in this organization, is that one, we have generic sensitization awareness which are mandatory
Mhm.
at certain milestones in the person's career journey. For example, all our onboarding programs have DEI sensitization, POSH sensitization as a mandatory part of the training, right?
Mm.
And then we have annual re-acknowledgements of those, which means you still have to go through those slides once again. You still have to answer and take the quiz at the end to be sure. And every year, obviously the use cases change. After hybrid, we brought in virtual use cases and things
True.
like that, right? To make it more real. Yeah. And then there we have targeted training for audiences. For example, our IC of POSH has
Mm.
recently been trained to be gender neutral because even though the law says that as an inclusive organization, we have gone above and beyond saying ethics and safety is more is very, very important to us. So any harassment case that comes up goes to IC. So they've been specifically trained to how to look at, all kinds of harassment, maybe from the community, not from the community, and things like that. We have special allyship programs. We have DEI sensitization workshops for new accounts, which means when a new ODC or an account or a project team gets set up, it's a mandatory part of that project team's,
Wow. So even at an account
so
level, when you start a new
even
project,
at an account level, yes,
that's
yes,
interesting.
right. So that's how it happens, is it seeps in, right? People who've gone through that training earlier, they become evangelists, and they can champion some of that, inclusive environment, inclusive work practices, inclusive attitude, inclusive peer, discussions and things like that, right? So it just seeps in. You just have to be at it, be consistently at it, because it takes time. It takes a village, literally, to get into the right mindset where everybody
Village and
feels
years,
safe, comfortable.
village and
Yes,
years
yes.
of
And
effort. I mean,
years,
no
right.
quick win. I mean, that's one
Yeah.
caution, because
Yeah.
you may get frustrated very soon because you're facing resistance and you're not seeing the outcome of it suddenly, right? We are all used to quick
Right.
turnarounds. I want to see the action ROI next day or next week, next month. It's not going to
Yes.
happen. You
So
have to
the
be.
formula is very simple. Some are for everybody, mandated, and an annual re-acknowledgement. Some are for targeted audience, specific to the kind of role they hold, whether it's leadership, whether it's, the IC of POSH, and some such.
Bina, anything you want to add to that in terms of should it be mandatory kind of sensitization program in your experience, or sometimes it can become negative also, or you're forcing through, so what's your experience?
My experience with mandatory trainings is very boring, honestly. So I think we have a list of programs that we have to go through every few months, and you have to go through a host of videos and answer some questions. And if you get, 7 marks instead of 8, you do the retest. It can get irritating sometimes. I think with the span of attention that all of us have these days, not more than a simple image or a picture conveys the thought as easily. Because people are on, and we have to find creative ways of doing that, right? People are opening Instagram more than maybe sometimes they're opening their mailbox in a day. That is possible. Yeah. So open it. Look at a WhatsApp message, maybe a picture. Look at it in a group. Get your employees onto a group on Insta and, just paste an image with some informational knowledge every day. Or, just create something that is easy to absorb and that is easy to learn and that people will want to see. It cannot become a forced kind of communication. Sit in a program for 1 hour and listen to an audio video. And we think that audio video is more creative than sitting in a classroom and doing a training program. It is not. It can get very monotonous and very, very boring. So yes, we have to push the agenda, but we don't have to bore people with it. We have to
I think
make
just
people want
inspire,
to know. Yeah.
just inspire people to participate
Inspire
and then
people to
and
want more. Yeah. Yeah.
I want more,
Yeah.
because sometimes, I mean, the caution here is, and you have to do what works at your place, but it's
Correct.
not a check in the box, right? It should not
Yeah.
be that. It should be really, really meaningful conversation and impact it brings. And look into your environment, what will work for you, and then maybe gradually start, inspire, create change agents, create champions, allies, and then gradually this movement will unfold, right? So it will be much more sustainable. And sometimes there can be backlash when it is mandated, or forced through your throat. No, you have to go through it. It can create negative. That's what I wanted to check with you, actually. Interesting. No easy answer again, but I think these are all practical experiences you are sharing. Thanks, Anupma, you, Beena, and Param, because I think it is helping at least me in at least get some thought clarity of how to begin. And I think I'm sure all of us are getting a little more hopeful and optimistic. There's a way forward of how to begin, right? So moving on, a question, Anupma, maybe to you. How do we measure, because we are all into management, practices, and it is built into our blood, right? So there's a saying, we can't improve something that we can't measure, right? So, and it is true to a lot of many times, right? So feel good is fine, but practically, how do we know maybe 1 year down the line, 2 years down the line, we are in the right direction? It is important for anyone who is fighting against all odds to drive an agenda, right? For good reason. How do you know you are moving in the right direction, and how far have you come, right? What's a practical way? Don't give a philosophical answer, I'm sure, but give a practical way.
Actually, it's a very tough one, honestly.
I know.
To measure, but I think a few ways that you could see is that if you have a like a Pride ERG, one is to measure like how many people, like what was it, and like at the end of the year, how many more people have, come forward, become allies in that group. If people have come out, like one of the companies I remember, they shared and we did, they've been consistently doing training programs and raising awareness, and they saw that a couple of employees came out who were already in the organization for a few years and were closeted, and they have come out. So for them, that's a yardstick of success, because it's not compulsory for people to come out, but the fact that they felt comfortable, that was one measure. What is the kind of, if you've hired people from the community, there's been intentional hiring, have they remained? What is the attrition rate? I think that's another way for you to measure that. Yes,
But
the
that's
efforts that.
tricky, Anupma, because I mean, that's very tricky because I mean, in my personal view, we should not force or even nudge people to come out, and declare,
Absolutely.
right? We should not. I
Yeah.
think we should allow person's own personal decision to come out or not, right? That's very
Absolutely.
private decision. We should encourage,
Absolutely.
but we should not go beyond and we should not nudge or
I
force,
don't
right?
think we should even encourage in any way. I think it's just when you're doing your awareness, sensitization programs, your policies, etc. I think that's the only encouragement which I feel should be there. I don't think we need to even emphasize and say that you come out or you should come out or you feel
Correct.
comfortable to come out. I think it's a personal choice. You're absolutely right. So with all that also, like if somebody has come, you can see it as a positive sign that if somebody chooses to come out, that this is you are going in the right direction. But the fact that people have not come out also doesn't mean that you're not doing a right thing. I would see, like, the allies that are being built up. I think that is one great way to see your attrition rates from the community. If you've hired, is a good way to look at it. See how many leaders are now advocating, sponsoring, supporting. If you're running
Or
internship
how many
programs, how
people
many.
are at leadership level in case anyone has declared. If we have some
Yes.
examples, that's a positive sign.
Yes. How many are sponsoring or mentoring people? If you're running an internship program, how many businesses are coming forward saying that I want to take people from the community in my business for the internship program. I'm ready to mentor so many people going forward. I think these are some ways in which you could measure that the efforts are really working. I think Param and Beena will have more concrete on the ground examples also, I feel, because they
Param,
both
Param,
are
please.
continuously running these programs. Yeah.
Param, how do you stand up in your different monthly reviews or annual reviews and say, hey, we have made progress? How do you convince? How do you say that?
So I'm going to be very vulnerable and honest, okay? We are still
Please.
trying to figure out what our measurement criteria is. It's very easy to put some numbers and say, oh, we want these many hires, these many recruitments, these many programs, these many events, these many participants in the Pride March parade in June, right? But we are not sure that is, to start with. Yes, at least being seen, heard, having numbers, having participation, doing a certain number of training programs and events is important. But we are also trying to go a little bit deeper and a little bit of more soul searching to say what those matrices are, and how do we show progress. I think I will fall back on what all of you said earlier, is lived experiences. When we really have people from the community who stand up and say that I'm proud to be part of this organization because I feel supported and I really have a successful career in front of me, that's when we would believe that we have made progress.
Beena, anything
Because
you
no
want?
amount of numbers and statistics can
You're
actually
right.
justify, say that people are growing and really flourishing in the company.
Absolutely, because it's a dilemma. Anyone who's driving, right? How do you show, how do you feel yourself that you're moving in the right direction? Everyone needs that validation, some affirmation that, okay, yes, you're doing in the right direction. Beena, any practical suggestion from you? Because I'm sure you must be living this dilemma or question in your current role.
No, I'm a little bit of a fan of objective KPIs. So I think that even while we're
Okay.
starting off, there must be something, because I think that also what gets measured gets done. And while we will encourage the concept and a lot of discussion around the area. If we don't measure it, we don't really know if you're going in the right direction or not.
True, true.
So to start off with, the very basic items like, how many training programs you've had, how has your survey feedback improved, like a before and an after, 6 months before and 6 months hence, how have your responses changed? Responses on, are you willing to declare? Are you open to having people within your team? Are you aware about the topic now? After 6 months, after you've done the program, something very basic questions like those to see how the needle has moved within the organization, because that is important, right? Because if you don't get the basics right, then everything else that you are doing is for basically a governance report more than anything else. And telling the world that you're an organization that supports the cause, but you're not really taking steps. So if you take steps, you please measure it. Also retention data, like how Param was talking about. If people have started declaring, then what is the retention percentage between the community and between the entire organization? Is it comparable, lesser, higher? We don't know, right? Also, if there are any incidents reported, incidents of discrimination, basically within the organization, are they increasing, decreasing with the declarations? What's happening? It's very important to understand. Keep your ear to the ground at all times, because you have to know what your people are feeling and doing, right? Another basic thing that you can measure is what is your participation at events. How many events is your organization sponsoring or nominating you to attend as representatives? So, for example, is my company sending me anywhere as a representative of Geo to talk about the topic, to talk about what we are doing as practices? What is it that are we hosting any events ourselves? Are we doing anything to come into the public eye and say that this is how we're supporting the cause? Also, I think regular reporting on initiatives, no matter what that report looks like, which means how many people we've hired, how many training programs we've had, how many mandatory programs we've had, what are the events that we've gone to, what is the feedback from the ground, why have we, why are we supporting this right now? How is it that we're looking to the external organization? How many mentors from the industry we have met, right? Have I gone out and reached out to anybody, maybe like an Anupama, to take tips on, how to get the initiative rolling within the organization? Who are our partners? Because it's going to be a journey and you're going to need community partners to do this, So I think these kind of basic questions, once we ask ourselves, we'll be able to measure the first few metrics, and then sort of we can get into a more complicated journey here.
Wow, you gave a lot, actually, a lot of useful tips. And sometimes it's not a direct measure, but a lot of indirect indices that can help you, give you some hope that you are in the right direction, right? I mean, it's a very, very useful tip. I wish I had taken note, but I'm sure I have a recording with me. I'm going to make a note of all those. Absolutely. Anupa, anything you want to add to that? No? Okay.
No, I think Veera's covered it.
So we are almost close to the time. I mean, just did not feel like, I did not realize it's already 4:17. And I think this conversation can go on, but I have one last question to ask, but then we'll have it 10 minutes of just free, we'll stop the recording. It'll be just a free flowing conversation, networking, in case anyone wants to speak and talk about, and from the audience, if they want to share. I don't know if there's some technology issue. People are on mute. I don't know if it is still resolved.
Still not able to.
Now it should be solved now. Now people should be able to unmute themselves now. Can you guys try it and give me thumbs up?
Venkatesh, can you try to unmute? You have been trying.
He's confirmed that.
Okay, okay. So one last question that I have from my side is being a LGBTQI talent into the organization. Sometimes you are not sure of, should I come out loud? Should I keep my identity hidden? It can be very exhausting. It can be very tiring. I mean, we can't even imagine that how painful it is. Besides some discrimination, unintentional, right? It all can put a lot of stress on pressure on your mind and can adversely affect your well-being, right? I mean, especially mental well-being. I think that's a very serious issue that we have heard, that we have seen. Any guidance on, because if we don't do that, let's be practical. We are going to face issues. We are going to have people who will be facing those kind of mental pressure, psychological pressure of being in the system, which is, and you're fighting every day, every moment against that, right? What kind of well-being support, is a good practice that Beena, Anupma, Param, that you have seen? And this is very important because we know we are going to fail somewhere. We are going to hurt someone. It is going to happen. But how do we take care of them? How do we take care of their well-being Is it a standard, your EAP program well-being, or there are some special initiatives that you think needed to take care of this? So that's Param starting from you. And this is important, maybe very crisp, practical suggestions as you have been giving. So please go ahead.
So I think our Pride ERG plays a very important role in this one. I think that's a safe space for people from the community who are actually running the ERG, right? So that gives a lot of confidence for others within the organization, whether they're out and loud or not, to be able to approach and talk and have a support community with them where they can voice and we hope they find the support that they need, because no one knows what's going on in people's minds, right? So that's the first pillar that we have. The second is that we have a mental well-being ambassadors anonymous live channel. About 62 of the organization people in the organization, we started this when COVID happened, like because of the stigma attached to going to counselors. People don't want to go and sign up or look to EAP counselors, right? So we became the first responders. We were trained and certified by Dr. Rane. And that helpline is available on every Friday. And it's an internal helpline, so only people within the organization can call. They do not, and there's no way to trace the call back. So they can discuss and get help and support from anything from their everyday anxiety to bigger issues. If they're facing challenges, right? So we have provided some ways and means.
Like the mental health first aider program, something like that. You have people specially trained.
It is the mental health first aider program.
It is about that. Okay, having that first aiders on the ground, and you open up lines where people can call in
anonymously.
Anonymous.
Yes. And we're all 62 of us, we're all trained and certified to be able to answer as first responders. Wonderful. And hopefully we capture. And if we get to understand that there is something related to a community, a person from the community who's facing, we refer it to the ESG saying, why don't you talk to so and so? We offer them some phone numbers and people from the community whom they can talk to, who are visibly out and loud. So they feel that, oh, I have nothing to hide, So there are ways that we try and see that we can support individuals who are going through a lot, right? And rest, of course, we publicize our EAP program, which is non-judgmental. They have, free counseling available to themselves and their family members or partners. So those are the ways that we have got started, and people can be in touch with their own people they know, they're friends with, or their peers, or their people manager. We hope that we provide a psychologically safe space for them to discuss issues and anxiousness.
Beena, anything you want to add to that? Thank you, Param. I think these are very practical, useful things that you're mentioning, and this is important. Beena, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think confidence will come only from example and experience. So while we're taking baby steps in this area, there are, for a very long time, we have, seen the game of Posh and the ethics committee and the whistleblower committee. At least many of us are from organizations which have been in the industry for a very, very long time. So if through experience and previous cases, you have exhibited and demonstrated that you are on the right side at all times, that you provide a fair and equitable platform to anybody, doesn't matter what the seniority of the employees concerned is, or which functions do they come from, whom do they report to, how long they have been in the organization, but you're still taking the right decision in each and every case. I think that is a journey that we have already taken. And so this is going to be a plus one to that. It's not going to be anything new. Once people have seen success there, they will know that the organization always is on the right side. I think the confidence comes from only that.
And Anupa, you want to add anything to that in your experience? Well-being support, specifically to L, because they're unique situation, unique challenges. Is there anything special, additional to be done? Your quick suggestion, because then we have some closing comment and some announcements and some maybe free networking.
Yeah, so I think the EAP program that most companies have today, just to check that, do they have queer affirmative counselors on board? Do they understand the community issues? I think this is very important, and to publicize the fact that our EAP provider is sensitive to queer issues, or there are people from the community who are are counselors in the EAP. So that is one very important safety measure. Also, I think sensitizing people managers on how do they handle situations where if a team member is coming out to them, what is it that they're supposed to do? How do they create that enabling environment, use that psychologically safe space, provide that space for them? I think that would also be important, because I think people fumble when somebody comes out like, what do I do in this situation, because they've not gone through that experience. I think that would help. Somebody has been raising this issue on POSH and IC. Training the IC on handling cases of sexual harassment pertaining to community members, I think, is important. And employees to know that, yes, my IC is equipped to handle cases. They are gender neutral. They can handle any kind of cases. That is very important. And if you can have a member from the community as part of the IC, I think that's Sone Pe Suhaga, really, because that really gives the confidence that, yes, just like because a POSH came into being, the act mandates that you should have 50% should be women. Similarly, if you have somebody from the community who's part of the IC, it gives that additional confidence to the community members that my IC is going to be impartial and they're going to be hearing my case impartially. And lastly, the Government of India, through the Ministry of Social Justice, also came up with an equal opportunity policy for transgender people. And according to that, they have mandated that companies should have a complaints officer who's a senior official, who's the go-to person in case you're feeling any kind of harassment, or you feel that there is a gender related discrimination or anything like that. So I think if these kind of measures are there, that also helps people to feel safe, that to come out or just be the authentic self. I think that's the most important thing.
Very, very useful and practical tips. I mean, absolutely. And guys, I'm sure you would have taken a note, but this recording will be available on our YouTube channel, and my team will put a link here in the chat. Please subscribe to that. And because, I mean, these can be referred to. It's just a maybe, I would say, operating manual, right? It's so much of knowledge we have got that if you go through, you'll be ready to kickstart, I'm sure, right? There's so much we have got out of here. So I have to make a couple of announcements. And I know, Venkatesh, while we're making this announcement, why don't you unmute and make a comment on, but just give me a couple of minutes because I don't want to lose on that. That as Enabling World, Sushil and myself, we are here and team, we do a few programs and some initiatives for corporates on DEI, whether it's a gender diversity, neuro, LGBTQI or PWD, etc. You can leverage whenever you have a need. And if you move on, we are getting into the Pride month. So there are some specific programs that we can help you with, on these topics, whether it's a panel discussion or expert talks. And then in the month of June, we are going to have Yoga Day and Father's Day. We do celebrate a Men's Day as well, because when we talk about diversity and gender neutral, we don't want to ignore, men folks. So we do celebrate, and there are a lot of corporates who come and say, topics like new modern masculinity, fatherhood and man, we must acknowledge and be really truly inclusive and diverse. So these are some of the programs. In the chat there'll be some link. If you you can refer to that. And there'll be a small, I know we have eaten into our networking time. I'm so sorry for that, but I did not want to stop our panelists from sharing such golden gems and tips for how to kickstart. So there'll be this is our YouTube link channel will be there. So you can subscribe to that, because we have many such sessions which are available. You can leverage and gain knowledge from. Okay, and there'll be small survey if possible. So just give your candid survey of how did you like this program? Was it useful, not useful? So do that. So with that, first, Venkatesh, thank you very much for contributing and such beautiful gems you have shared, in the chat. But any quick comment you want to make?
Yeah, hi. Namaskar, everyone. So I think I identify myself as a non-binary individual, and I have been working as a member of the community, I've been working for 10 years for the different diverse communities, with more specific to gender and sexual minorities. And I'm myself a people and culture manager working with E-Zone. So I think a couple of things, I think a lot of panelists have covered mostly, but I think the most important part, I think what I always feel as a member of the community, which I have faced in my couple of organizations or now in a place where I think having discussion, not again restricting to Pride Month. Again, throughout discussion, that's one of the major things we have to keep having it. That's one. Second, I think very little things. It might look very little, but in the using of gender neutral pronouns, gender neutral restrooms, gender neutral dress code. I think that is one again we don't talk about very actively. Having today, if I quote unquote, my documents may say male, but I don't confine myself. If I'm asked to wear a shirt and pant in a very formal attire, I wouldn't be very comfortable. I think so. Having addressing to gender neutral dress code, understanding the alignment, and again that is very important to address. And I think these basic discussions, and again, it's not only the leadership which has to be sensitized, again, but each and every team from the initial, I think someone has raised, from the initial starting of the building when a security or individual is there or someone, the security guard, so they have to also be sensitized so that they don't feel any member of the community don't feel discriminated. So I think it's a process. I think we all have been doing it, but as a request, as a member of the community, again, I would certainly always do each and every one is we always try to build policies. We are trying to make it inclusive, and it's very basic steps. We all try to grow, and we are there to handle each other. But it's very important. The inclusion should start within yourself and within your space. It's okay. Today you are not able to hire someone from the community this year. It's absolutely okay. But make sure when you are welcoming a member of the community, the organization should be 100% sensitized to welcome that person, even if it's one.
Absolutely. Thank you, Venkatesh. We have to close in time, but I think you have made huge contribution. So our gratitude to you and thanks for contributing in the chat and sharing. And thank you for joining this session. And Sandeep, any quick half a minute comment you want to make, 1 minute comment? You have been raising hand. Unmute yourself and speak, Sandeep Singh ji.
Yeah, am I audible?
Ji, you are.
Now the fact is this: that the first thing, I'm not from LGBTQ community. I'm from PWD. And am I allowed to ask questions on that? Because the first question.
So, this session is more specifically on LGBTQI, respecting everyone's time. While this is also important, my suggestion would be we can take it offline because, this session is particularly dedicated. People have come to discuss on that, right? So, but I'll talk to you separately, sir, if you don't mind.
Please. Thank you.
So with that, if there is no other question, so we are 1 minute over. Sorry for that, but I wanted to close in time. But my big thanks to Anupma, you, Beena, and Param. What fantastic knowledge we have gained through this discussion. It's eye-opener in many, many ways. And I'm sure audience would have benefited from, if you are thinking, I'm not ready, I don't know where to start. I'm sure there's so many now gems with us where we can begin with. And I'll be very happy if this discussion would help you to kickstart your LGBTQI journey into the organization. That'd be wonderful. So please share your comment in the chat, and there's a poll already. But this session will be available on YouTube. And thank you, team, who joined on LinkedIn Live as well. Thank you for your joining and contributing. I'm sure, most of your questions would have got answered. This is all learned. We are all learning together. None of us is perfect, but together, I think we can make a huge difference. So I wish you all the best in your journey on DI inclusion at the workplace. And thank you once again, ladies here, Anupma, Beena, and Param. What fantastic knowledge you have shared is amazing. And thank you, team, Sushil, Kalyan, and Vijaya for helping in this session. And thank you, audience, for coming and engaging. It was absolutely fantastic. Thank you and stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you so much
for this session. Excellent conversation. Thanks, Param, Beena.